Welcome to our investigation of a fascinating Talmudic passage from Masechet Chullin Daf Kaf Chet Amud Beit. Today we examine a legal puzzle. What is the precise nature of Rabbi Yehuda requirement to cut the veins during Shechita? Is it a fundamental part of the ritual of slaughter or something else entirely? Let us begin our inquiry to this question of Talmudic logic. The Talmudic discussion opens with a concise but ambiguous legal statement from the Mishnah, the foundational text of rabbinic law. Rabbi Yehuda says, the slaughter is not valid until he cuts the veins in the neck. What is the precise nature of this requirement? Is it a fundamental part of the ritual of slaughter or something else entirely? The sage Rav Ḥisda offers a practical explanation that distinguishes between two types of animals. First, the rule applies only to birds. Rav Ḥisda said that one must cut the veins only in the slaughter of a bird. Second, the reason is blood drainage. As one typically roasts it in its entirety, one must cut the veins to ensure that the blood drains. But with regard to an animal, since it is typically quartered, one need not cut the veins. The theory of Rav Ḥisda frames the cutting of veins not as a ritual act, but as a practical measure to ensure proper blood drainage in a specific case, whole birds. Before we continue, let us clarify the key terms for our investigation. Shechita, the ritual slaughter of an animal in accordance with Jewish law. The act has precise rules, including the type of knife and the motion of the cut. Simanim, literally signs. The two primary pipes in the neck that must be severed during Shechita, the esophagus and the trachea. Vridin, the jugular veins, the subject of our investigation. Baraita, a statement from the Mishnaic period that was not included in the final compilation of the Mishnah. It serves as an external, authoritative source of evidence in Talmudic arguments. The Gemara immediately questions the theory of Rav Ḥisda blood drainage by focusing on a specific verb Rabbi Yehuda used in the Mishnah. Is that to say that the reason is due to the need to drain the blood? But didn't we learn? Rabbi Yehuda says, the slaughter is not valid until he cuts, sheishchot, the veins, indicating that the cutting of the veins is a component of the slaughter, shechita. The word sheishchot is the formal term for ritual slaughter. Its use suggests a ritual act, directly contradicting the practical explanation of Rav Ḥisda. The Gemara proposes a way to reconcile the language with the theory. Perhaps the word slaughter is being used loosely. Say that the statement of Rabbi Yehuda is until he punctures the veins. And what is the meaning of until he cuts? Until he punctures the veins at the moment of slaughter, when the blood flows. This adjustment keeps the theory of Rav Ḥisda alive. The act is in part of the slaughter, but must happen at the time of the slaughter for practical reasons, maximum blood flow. The Gemara introduces a baraita that seems to strengthen the case against the theory of Rav Ḥisda. Exhibit A. Come and hear proof from a baraita. The veins through slaughter, this is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. This phrasing explicitly connects the veins to the act of slaughter, shechita, seemingly disproving the puncturing amendment. The Gemara rejects the challenge by proposing an alternative reading of the very same baraita. The Gemara rejects that proof. Say that the correct reading of the baraita is, he must puncture the veins at the moment of slaughter. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. By referring the language, the Gemara shows the baraita is not conclusive. The practical blood drainage theory of Rav Ḥisda remains viable. A new baraita is cited, this time quoting the sages directly confronting Rabbi Yehuda. Their question is based on an assumption about his position. The rabbi said to Rabbi Yehuda, since veins were mentioned only to drain blood from them, what difference is there to me whether one cuts them as a component of slaughter, and what difference is there to me whether one cuts them not as a component of slaughter? The sage's question only makes sense if they understood the ruling of Rabbi Yehuda to mean that cutting the veins is a formal component of slaughter. This is the strongest challenge yet. In a masterful turn, the Gemara argues that the sage's question has been misunderstood. They were not asking about ritual versus non-ritual. What difference is there to me whether one punctures them at the moment of slaughter, and what difference is there to me whether one punctures them not at the moment of slaughter? And Rabbi Yehuda holds that at the time of slaughter the blood emerges quickly because the blood is warm. When it is not at the time of slaughter, the blood does not emerge quickly because it is cool. The smoking gun is disarmed. The question was about timing and practicality, perfectly aligning with the hypothesis of Rav Ḥisda. Rabbi Yirmiyah raises a new dilemma. The laws of Shechita are invalidated by specific actions. Does the same apply to cutting the veins? If one interrupted the act, or if he pressed the knife and cut them instead of drawing the knife back and forth, what is the halacha? If these actions invalidate the cutting of the veins, then it must be a formal part of Shechita. If they do not, it must be a separate, practical act. The answer to the question of Rabbi Yirmiyah comes not from further analysis, but from a definitive tradition passed down from Rabbi Yochanan, a leading sage. A certain elder said, "This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. He punctures them with a thorn and their cutting is valid." The simple statement of Rabbi Yochanan definitively proves that cutting the veins is not part of the Shechita ritual. The instrument. He punctures them with a thorn. A thorn is not a kosher slaughtering knife, which must be perfectly smooth and sharp. If a thorn is permissible, the act cannot be formal Shechita. The action. He punctures them. The act described is puncturing, not the precise, be-same slicing motion required for valid Shechita. The act is purely functional. The initial hypothesis of Rav Ḥisda was correct. To close the case, the Gemara presents a final baraita that aligns perfectly with the original theory of Rav Ḥisda in its entirety. As a final corroboration. Rabbi Yehuda says, "In a bird slaughter is not valid until he cuts the gullet and the veins." This text explicitly limits the ruling of Rabbi Yehuda to birds, confirming the first part of the hypothesis of Rav Ḥisda and validating his entire explanation. The process reveals more than the ruling itself, a commitment to textual precision, logical consistency, and the relentless testing of ideas against evidence. From the ruling of Rabbi Yehuda, through the hypothesis of Rav Ḥisda about birds and blood drainage, through the decisive test from Rabbi Yirmiyah, to the breakthrough from Rabbi Yochanan, puncture with a thorn, to the conclusion that the theory of Rav Ḥisda is vindicated and corroborated. 3 challenges were refuted through reinterpretation, Arieri Diengi, and Suintiolgiumienti. The Gemara demonstrates that legal reasoning requires not just knowing the law, but understanding its logic, its purpose, and its place within the broader system of halakha.